to Impact Makers. I'm Carly Hill again, and I'm here today with a wonderful guest who's going to share with us all about her journey. Her name is Danielle Leverett-Gallaspy. You share a little bit about yourself and then go into yourself as it relates to your organization and why you got it started.
Absolutely. So, my name is Danielle Leverett-Gallaspy. I'm a wife, a mom, a podcaster, educator by trade. That's what I went to school for. I taught special education for several years. And that's pretty much me. I'm not a very exciting person until recently. I worked in the nonprofit field with a Hopper program for a few years and actually got my feet wet in nonprofit and loved it. Never thought that I would start my own nonprofit. That was never something I aimed to do. It was always, I loved working for the nonprofit I was working for. Well, in 2019, I lost my niece, great niece, and great nephew to an act of family annihilation due to domestic violence. And it crushed my world, I'll be honest. Our family was devastated, as anybody could imagine. And in my effort to heal, I started wondering, like, did we miss signs? Was there something that happened that we didn't know about? Was there something there? And in the midst of me trying to heal, I started getting phone calls and text messages and emails. Oh, I heard about what happened to your niece. I'm so sorry. You know, that happened to me. And these are from people that I knew like all my life. Some of them I had known that and they were all women of color, and they were all women who just never shared their story with anybody, went through this stuff alone. So in my effort to heal, I started attending webinars. I signed up for an advocacy class. I started doing all these things, like trying to find my place in this. And then I started to be able to meet with certain women and learn why. Why did you not feel okay to reach out or find help? And a lot of them were saying they didn't know where, or they contacted certain organizations and they were pretty much turned away because they didn't fit the mold of an abused person. And then I started hearing the statistics about how women of color are 90% of women of color who are murder victims are victims of people that they knew, whether it be an intimate partner or a family member, which is huge. 90%. Think of that, 9 out of 10. Yeah. So, like I said, all that was just soaking into my brain till finally I was like, you know what? I'm gonna find a way to help people who look like me, women who look like me, who may be stuck in the situation my niece was stuck in, and have nowhere to go. Everybody's turning them around or turning them away. So that's where R3 was founded. I started actually volunteering first, and from there, working with other organizations in my community, I saw where most of our organizations here, they only offer shelter. They don't offer, when these women leave with nothing, they don't offer them money to go get their ID. They don't offer them money to go get a copy of their birth certificate, any of that. So that's what R3 started out as. Like, let's get them $50 to go be able to go get their ID. And it just turned into something great. And I'm excited for everything that's coming along with it.
Oh my gosh, I love that. That's amazing. And you said something really powerful, not only in terms of what you're doing, but also in terms of how you approached it, right? So this is just because this is an educational interview. When you look at why you started your organization, in addition to it being a passion project about something you experienced, you also waited to identify a gap, right? So it wasn't just so I like that you said I volunteered at shelters and things like that, or places serving individuals who experience domestic violence, and you saw a gap, and therefore you started this organization to fill that, which is very, very good and powerful, because that's not what people normally do. They usually just start without even
right. They're like, send me some money so I can have an event to
like 10 shelters in the community and I want to start another one. No, you don't. Okay. So first of all, that's amazing, and I'm so glad you did that. So can you go a little deeper into the programs that you actually do with our three, kind of what the services are that you provide in depth and kind of how you got there. Give us more about that story.
Absolutely. So, of course, we offer financial assistance for identification documentations. That was the very first program I thought to do because I noticed that they're like, okay, we got these women in the shelter. We got to get them a job. Well, or we got to get them an apartment, but we can't get them one because they don't have an ID.
Right.
Okay, they don't have a job, so they don't have the money to get an ID, and your funding doesn't allow them to get an ID. So that's how we got there. We offer assistance with getting IDs, birth certificates, and social security cards. We also started an advocacy program. Our advocacy program is not your typical advocacy program. We help develop escape plans, safety plans. Because that gap happened, or that program came about because the way that my niece was murdered, she was leaving and she didn't have a safety plan. She told him she was leaving. So we help develop safety plans. Another part of our advocacy is that we also provide assistance or accompaniment to the hospital or the police department. Because a lot of the times you get there, you don't know what to say. You don't know what to do. And especially if you're going to a hospital for an injury, you have all these people coming at you, and just kind of being that support system and that safety net for that survivor. And then the last thing we offer with our advocacy piece is assistance with filing the crime victims claim form. Because a lot of victims don't know that if they've been in a certain type of domestic violence incident, there is funding set aside by the federal government that I hate to use the word entitled, but you're entitled to in order to get back to a place of freedom and independence. And that's what R3 wants to do, is to release these survivors from their abuser into a place of independence and freedom.
Awesome. So I'm sorry, this is not on our list of questions, but just based on what you're sharing, I'm interested to know what your team looks like and who helps you with this.
So believe it or not, there's only 3 of us. There's 3 of us. It's myself. I have a very amazing friend, Valencia, who we started out as co-workers at the old nonprofit that I used to work at. When I started this, when I say she jumped right in, jumped on board, and was like hitting the ground running, and I knew the type of person she was. I knew her work ethic. So I knew she was perfect to help with our 3. And then our other worker, I'll say, we don't even have titles because we're super new. This week, like I said, the incident happened in 2019. We started our 3 in 2020, right before the pandemic hit. So our other individual, Victoria, she actually came to me by way of another friend that works at the nonprofit I used to work at. She has a very close or personal story as well. She lost her mom to domestic violence. Mm-hmm. So we all have kind of hit the ground running. And I do most of the advocacy because I'm the one who's taken the advocacy course. But everybody chips in. Everybody helps. When I'm not available, they're there to fill in the gap. So
are you still doing this? Are you doing this on a volunteer basis, or is this your full-time work now?
No, believe it or not, this is a volunteer basis. We do not get paid every dime. We were fortunate, which is unheard of, but we were fortunate last year to be awarded a pretty sizable grant from a larger corporation, which we thought, our first year of operation, that we were going to be functioning on donations only. So when we got that grant, we were like, okay, what happened? Wow. So we talked about it with the board and everything, and it was our thought process. It was collective, not just me. Valencia and Victoria both agreed that let's get to a point where we're helping as many women as we can. Mm-hmm. None of us are hurting financially. Mm-hmm. So we won't take a salary. We won't take a salary simply because the work means so much more to us than a profit. And I know that is different when it comes to nonprofit. Well, I know maybe the public thinks that, nonprofits don't make money. You can make money in nonprofits, but we have chosen that all of our funding goes to our survivors in our programs. especially with us starting, I forgot to mention this program. We just started a GED program because we did have quite a few survivors who were suffering financial abuse. That's what I'll call it. Suffering financial abuse. And because of them not having a educational background, not having a GED or a high school diploma, it was hard for them to get employment. So we've now started a program where not only do they get the tutoring and the a one-on-one coach to help them prep for the GED, but we also pay for the GED and the classes, of course, the tutoring as well. So that's another program that we started. So
Awesome.
yeah.
All right. So how would you say you measure your organization's impact? So how do you know that you're making a difference? What kind of indicators do you look for?
Okay, so I'm going to give the politically correct answer, and then I'm going to give my heartfelt answer.
Say just your heart. I mean,
so according in our policies and procedures and bylaws, of course, all that, we measure impact quantitatively. So we go by the number of survivors we've served versus the number of survivors at the end after we've assisted them and they've gotten to where they need to be. We do a survey with them or interview. It just depends on what they're most comfortable with. They can fill out an online survey or they can do an interview with one of us. And we measure impact that way. But for me, just knowing, I just see the growth. When I know what a woman was when she first came to us, and when I talked to her 6 months later, has it been? Yeah, I talked to her 6 months later. I see where she is, and I see that growth, and that's how I personally know that we're making a difference and we're helping somebody. My goal is to get us into more of a research approach for impact, just because I want to see the numbers and the statistics for our state for women of color domestic violence incidents. I want to see them plummet. Like, we are disproportionately affected by domestic violence right now, and it hurts my soul, to be honest, to know that so many are going through this and not saying anything until it's too late, to be honest. So, but that's how we measure impact typically.
I see. So, and that's another teachable moment. Both are really important, and that's something we face in nonprofits. We have the unique challenge of having a double bottom line. Because as you said, it's volunteer based now, but eventually, as your work grows, you're going to want to eventually be able to just stop working and doing other things so that you can really do this full time.
Right.
And so right now, by you collecting that type of information, you are positioning yourself to go after larger revenue streams and grants and other types of support from the community.
Absolutely.
Which will allow you to continue deepening your impact.
Right. Trust me, we have a plan. We're new to this, but we're true to this, I promise. And we have a plan.
That's very real, and that's super important. But I'm saying that because other folks who are in your shoes, who are just starting up or thinking about starting up, they're focused just on the heartfelt, which is very, very important, and it drives the work, no doubt. But you also have to be strategic about how you're measuring that, because I know organizations that have informally been around for years, but when they go to apply, they come to me about grants. And I'm like, well, what kind of impact have you made? What kind of data do you have? How can we show that you've been making a difference and that your program makes sense? So,
and it helps that two of us who are doing the work, and our board is amazing as well, don't get me wrong, but the ones of us who are doing the work, it helps that the two of us who are doing the work, or the three of us, but two of us worked in nonprofit before, and we were very hands-on with, funding and grants and all that. So we kind of knew the ropes. So if I could give anybody who's looking to get into this world one piece of advice, is make sure that you have either somebody to lean on that knows the nonprofit world, or you've been in the nonprofit world yourself, because it's not get your 501c3 and people are just gonna give you money. That is
thank you.
Your friend, and don't get me wrong, you're gonna have family say, oh my God, that's great, I support you any way I can. But when you call on them and say, hey, I've got a survivor here and we got to get her in a hotel and we're trying to put her up for a month and we need over $1,000 to put her up, can you help me? They're like, oh well, I can give you 50.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's so great. I'm so glad you said that. You answered the next question, basically. So tell me, so aside from you all working in nonprofits before and being familiar with the landscape and how to develop resources for the organization, have there been any other things that helped you along the way? Any other resources that you used? Any kind of pro tips you can share with folks?
Yes. Network for Good. It is a website. It has like a library full of templates, tips, tricks, all kinds of resources. Network for Good was amazing for me. And then, believe it or not, the IRS is your friend when you are creating a nonprofit. A quick search in their search bar will tell you everything you need to know with making sure that you're in line with what they will require of you from start to finish. So as far as online resources, I would say those two have been the most helpful. But also, I'll be honest, I have a great support system here at home. My husband has been amazing with allowing me, I say allow, but letting me take money out of our account, because that's another thing. Starting a nonprofit wasn't cheap either. Like, not just getting them funding for the survivors, but there's a ton of paperwork you have to do. There are registration fees there. You got to have a registered agent. You got to have all this stuff, and you have to pay for it before you get any funding from anywhere, before you can even say I'm a nonprofit and I'm taking donations. So that was one of the things that I didn't know. That was one of the things I didn't know. So it costs a lot of money up front. So having that support system here at home helped me be able to not give up, because I don't know if I was by myself, I probably would have said, okay, let's find another way to help these women.
Beautiful. So in your experience in working with the IRS, or like using the IRS as a resource,
Yes,
would you say that the IRS requires a lot from nonprofits?
I'm going to say that it depends on your drive. And the reason I say that is, for me, I didn't feel like they required a lot because I wanted it. I was going to do it. I didn't care. They could have asked me to figure out a way to fly to the moon. I probably would have attempted to do so. But if you're in it for alternate reasons, you probably will feel like it's a lot. You probably will feel like, oh my goodness, they want this piece of paper, they want that, they want me to do this. But personally, to achieve 501c3 status, no, I don't feel like it was a lot at all. It was an application, and it was an application fee. As long as you've done your front work and got your articles of incorporation and done your bylaws, and if you've done that work, going through the IRS is a breeze.
Right. Thank you. Okay.
You're welcome.
I think I'll only ask that because just in general, it's a misconception about nonprofits and it being overly complicated, when really, if you understand why they're asking for certain things, and you also look at what you're required to do, it's really not as bad as people think.
It's not. Not if you've done the work prior to. It's not.
Yeah, it's just about planning and and doing your research and knowing what you need to do.
Exactly.
Yeah, so and that, like you said, that passion and that drive really helps to make that a lot easier.
Right. Yeah.
All right, cool. Okay, so last thing, I really appreciate this conversation so much.
Absolutely.
Last thing I want to ask, how can people support our three right now? What do you need, and how can people support and get in touch with you?
Okay, so I'll first tell you how to get in touch with us. We are on all social media platforms at R3 Inc. That's on Instagram and Twitter, and also Facebook. The page is actually R3 Memorial Foundation Incorporation on Facebook. Our website is www.our3.org. And the best way to support us is believe in our mission. I know we are based in Mississippi, so a lot of people who may see this may be wondering, well, what can I do? I can't volunteer for them or anything like that. Believe in our mission and make sure that if you encounter somebody that is going through anything that could affect their life traumatically, point them in a direction. You can go to the National Domestic Violence website to find resources in your area. But if you want to support R3 directly, you can go to www.r3.org. There is a donate button there. We also have a small initiative called the Purpose Purse Project, which every survivor who comes to us gets a purse that has been previously used, but it's filled with everything, toiletries that you can think of, and also gift cards for food and gas, and just those things that they may not have been able to grab when they left the house. So if you'd like to donate to that initiative, you can. And that's pretty much it. We just ask people to support us, follow us on Instagram so we can get the word out. We post a lot of statistics that you may not even realize. I can't tell you how many times we've posted statistics, one of our statistic posts, and people are like, oh my God, I had no clue. So I know we hear about domestic violence and we all say, oh my God, that's awful. But our goal is to do something about it and stop it wherever we can. I really want to say the book stops here. So just support the mission. That's the biggest way you can help us, is support the mission and get the word out that domestic violence is not okay and women of color are not alone.
Beautiful. And I just want to say thank you for doing this. You are truly an impact maker.
Thank
So many people need this. And you're just the one to do it. You and your team, you are the ones. You are the chosen.
Thank you.
I do have a question. Can people outside of Mississippi get support from R3, or are you just okay?
Yes. So we also have a crisis transportation program where we provide funding to get women away from their abuser, or at the actual transportation, just depending on what their situation is. But yes, people outside of Mississippi can get assistance from R3 Memorial Foundation Incorporated. You'll just go on the website to get the information to contact us. Let us know your situation, because the good thing is our advocacy services can be done remotely. And of course, any assistance financially can be done remotely for the most part. Sometimes smaller areas or more rural areas, we have found, do require us, when it comes to like IDs and social, they require us to be there. So we're not able to do those, but we can get your birth certificate. And once you get your birth certificate, you should be able to go get your ID and social.
Awesome. That's amazing. Well, thank you again. That's all I had. Is there anything else you wanted to share? Last words before we go out of this interview?
And just be kind to each other, love each other, and be kind to people, because you never know what somebody is going through.
Awesome. Absolutely. Well, thank you again, Danielle. It's been a pleasure. And I'm going to drop all of the things she mentioned in the description of this video so that you can access it, all the resources she mentioned, as well as the contact information for Hour 3. All right. With that said, thank you all. And I hope you learned something today. See you next time.